Let's do it. Let's go and talk about a different region. I vote we talk about LCK. Let's do it.
Okay.
Because if people don't know, there's a bunch of different angles here. So first of all, we had what on paper was the biggest matchup of the last few years. We had Gen.G against T1. Admittedly, they're in very different positions in their careers. Obviously, like T1's had those like dodgy weeks where they like fucking lost to Bro and they were having close game. This is like 2 ago. They had a close series against D plus, etc. Like they've had their moments where they've looked a little shaky, obviously, and people have criticised Thorin. We referenced the Orcs thing on the last episode, and the Smash Gumayushi thing is still ongoing. Like, by the way, we're about to talk about in this series here. There's another example of where Gumayushi is showing his weaknesses. So the difference is Gen.G, as we pointed out, I think it was either last episode or 2 episodes ago. This is how you know that narratives actually have to be like built up slowly to be like to sustain the like energy release, Yamato. Because since the year began with Gen.G, even though by the way they did almost win the split, because they didn't win the split and didn't go to first stand and thus aren't in your brain as like the #1 team until this split. I actually think people almost haven't noticed, like, bro, they're about to do the undefeated splits. Like, it's really going to happen. Like, they've still lost almost fuck all games. But with that said, this match, it reminds me of that thing I told you in the past about all the telecom wars. So on paper, this match should be Gen.G's the #1 team in the world by far, and T1's actually a bit shaky. That even though this was a 2-0, mate, this was thrilling. Like this was fucking. There was some crazy moments in this. Like one of the things is one, it actually reminds me of earlier in the split when they played. There was one of those Chovy moments again where he did like essentially he did a faker moment, 2 faker where he did that like crazy fucking Azay shuffle or whatever. Like first of all, there was a mega Chovy moment again, and then secondly, this shows you how DNA of teams is different, even when you only change one player, Yamato. Because remember, back in the day, actually T1 was one of the best teams at doing Baron, mate. That used to be where they would fucking trick out all these teams. This team now, like fucking hell, that's like a weakness of theirs, mate. They looked really fucking dodgy. Like in this game, they couldn't, any advantages they had, they couldn't use. Like they gave it up. Like I know it looks like because it's 2-0 and Gen.G never loses. People in history will look at the league PD and go, oh, it's just a 2-0. Bro, this was actually winnable. They could have been the team to like give them the first defeat. What did you think of this series?
No, it's like the both games pretty much ended in a situation where T1 had the better position on an objective and basically just botched the setup and the conversion on a smite. Like there was that first game, the Varus Renata Sion. It's like there was the Elder Dragon fight, which it pretty much just lost because Doran decided to hit the bot wave when it just didn't matter. So they just lost position. Gen.G face checked everything, and then Zio could just line up her feathers in a very, very easy way. But technically, T1 was in a very, very good position because they were first in River, and the main thing was just such a simple mistake of Doran showing on the bot wave that just made them collapse, because leading up to that point, they had Soul, they got winning fights, they found good angles, the Varus Renata combos looking really, really good. There was a lot of things to be just happy about when it came to T1. It seemed like that picture of T1's draft is exactly where I believe most of us looking at this T1 roster kind of imagine them. It's like, oh, you have Sion into Jace, you have, Faker playing some of his classics, and then you have like Gumayushi, Varus, Renata, that's perfect. Range support. It's like you have all the strengths and all the, the layers of what you would hope from the best version of what this T1 roster could be. But the strangest thing is, for the longest time, Owner has just been the best performer on this team.
Yeah.
But in this series, he was kind of a letdown. There's been a big discussion over who should be like the best, like all-pro jungle. And I think that Canyon was like very, very discredited just because Gen.G is winning and people are just saying, oh, Chovy. But Canyon has had like a tremendous split, which is a big part of why we are so excited about Gen.G, because usually it's like Canyon like phones it in, like kind of chills.
I think that's also why people don't think he's the best Yamato, because the narrative is he doesn't try it regular season, isn't it?
But this one, he really, really like kicked it up a notch and has been like there. Like but in this series, like all the smite, I think it was like 5-6 smite situation where you kind of almost, lean towards thinking that Owner should win those because it's like it's Owner, this is his area. But in the end, like Canyon is also, known for being very, very clutch in those situations too. But he was winning out like every smite scenario time and time again. The weird thing for me about Gen.G, but maybe in a fucked up way, also like a positive thing, because I feel like Chovy is playing in such a loose way.
Oh, it's way more ballsy now. But thinking that game 1 when he did that like re-engaged mid, like that fight should have been over. Normal Chovy would never have done that, mate.
He is so
this guy's
loose.
going for it.
it's almost as if he, I don't know, like he was in a sweat lodge and he like discovered like a new version of himself or something, because in winter the whole narrative was, oh, this guy's just playing TFT, because you could see his account, he had like 500 600 TFT
Right.
games, he does play solo queue, he looks less precise. And how I imagined was that Fearless might be like the best thing possible for Chovy, because it would break him out of the mold of who he is as a player. Because historically, he always did this thing where it was very clear that I'm going to first pick this. If that's banned, I'm going to pick this. And I'm going to ban, is going to pick this. It's like really 1, 2, 3. Like, I don't know how many series we've watched of Chovy where he played the five games of the same champ. It was his worst series playing 5 games of the same champ, and also his best, like the Azir and of course Spring. And now there's this looseness about him, because the way he played in game was so disrespectful. I think if Faker actually was in good form and was hitting any of these charms that should be landing, I think Chovy could have had one of those games that he had early in the split where he just went like 0-7 on Azir.
I know what you mean. He was literally almost daring Faker to catch him with a charm, like just sidestepping and juking, and it was ridiculous. Like, I know what you mean. Like, if you turn the inputs off, you never get that Chovy.
It was completely disrespectful. And to think, it's like the conversation before this game was like, oh, if they win this game, then they're on the 19-game win streak. They haven't lost a game. Oh, this is a record. We haven't seen this before. But they didn't seem to give a shit. And that's what's so spooky to me about Gen.G. When you have a conversation about Gen.G and you're like, yeah, Ruler is probably the weakest performer. It's like, what the hell? That's where we're at. The Ruler is the weakest performer. That's a scary thing to even mention if you are a fan of any of the other teams.
Oh, of course.
It's like in that...
Connected with that, Yamato, you said it on the past episodes. This is a great example. If people want to see how actually the Duro guy sort of lived up to the expectation, this is a great series too. Like, mate, he was probably the best player in this one. That guy's actually for real having some. For some reason, it was only last split. His first split, like a lot of rookies, he struggled. This split, he's been really good, actually, mate. Like, actually, I can forget that he's like the rookie. He's actually pretty good.
Oh, it's like now we are seeing a player that is just allowed to express himself mechanically, which is super cool. It reminds me so much of who Missing was for JDG, because everyone, like I think everyone just after watching JDG 2024, after that 2023 year, looked at Missing as like, what the hell is this? He can only win on Rakan. What the hell is going on? But there is a beauty in being able to just be a player that is plugged into a roster full of superstars, and you also managing to, of course, adapt to that. I think with the increase of performance of everybody else, streamlining the games, everyone being more precise on side, and Canyon being, just as good as he is now, Duro has an opportunity to just show how good he is mechanically, because for the longest time, there's just been a player that's been like top 3 in Korean ladder for such a long time. And that's an achievement that still, of course, matters. So Gen.G right now in this series, I do agree that it was very, very close. It was ridiculously close. And I thought that Gen.G would beat T1, much easier. But
you would think they would be the front runner and just bash them the whole time, mate. Especially like if you even start the series, T1's winning most of these fights. Like they're actually getting all the skirmishes. By the way, even Faker's playing quite well in some of these fights. Like, I know what you mean. I was watching it thinking, fuck, is this like the upset? And then amazingly, they managed to get 0-2. I don't know how, because if you watch these games, you'd think you at least get a game, for fuck's sake.
At least from T1 side, it's like even the game 2 draft, they ended up Thorin Rumble. I think that's probably like his best champ. Like in that game 2, they tried to gank him over and over again. He gets a lot of information on the map. He dodges Pantheon ults. Like this is Thorin in his best form, which I think from a community side, they don't appreciate a player that plays under that much jungle pressure and just survives, because play against Ornn, Pantheon as Rumble and going 0-0 and making Rumble ulting the right waves, getting information on enemy, like on jungle, to make sure that the crossplay happens. Like Thorin did a fantastic job in this one. I'm happy that T1 have finally figured out this is the mold that we're going by. Gumayusi just playing strong lane AD, try to counter support as hard as you can, something they can play in isolation and just let Faker play his usual champs. Like it seems like T1 has figured out finally the recipe that makes sense for them, which I think is very, very good. But that game too, it's like they had that Nash angle that they took. They seem so timid about actually winning 1 positions. It's like thinking back at some of those nail biters that they were a part of against Damwon, or even the previous series against Gen.G. It's like they played some games that were ridiculously close when they shouldn't have been, and that's something that is so unique to this T1 because in the past it was like, oh, T1 has a lead, they know how to play out the Nashers, they're going to, if you get into the team fights, they're going to perform, but with this T1 roster it just isn't the same, because that Nash take, it ended up like if people just pull up that game and they see how in the end the Pantheons, the game 2, so Pantheon just stole the Nash, and basically it's absurd looking at that. What the hell was that noise? It was absurd looking at that, because in the end all of T1 just ran away. Like everyone's going to look at that and see like Wukong lost a smite against Pantheon, but all of T1 just runs away under no threat. And there's a nervousness in terms of how they fight that I don't recognize T1 in. And I don't know if it's a question of, when they were damn good previous years, that were just really, really practiced together. They had the same, the kind of repetition that carries over, of course, when you play together for that long. And now all of the turmoil is kind of catching up to them. I'm not so sure what it is, but it is weird to see T1 in that spot, because the last thing I would ever attribute T1, I would never think T1 plays those situations out like a team that is inexperienced. That has never been like a T1 problem. T1, if you got them to 25, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, they would always compete against anybody in the world, regardless of how bad they looked in terms of their form. If they got to that point, you get Faker to that point, he's going to perform. But in this one, they just couldn't. Gen.G were just a lot more clutch in those situations. But I still think positive signs for T1, thinking to Hanwha Life as an example, who lost to KT. They had a good series against DNF, but who really cares? I just think the race now towards who is going to be the second team next to Gen.G, if Gen.G of course wins the upper finals, because they're pretty much guaranteed to be in the top 2. The Hanwha Life T1 conversation becomes a little bit more interesting again in terms of the potential of it.
No, by the way, I agree with what you said about Chovy as well. Like, in the same way as, if you remember, it was in the spring final last year where he had that game 5 where he made that mega ballsy as A player. That was unusual, though. That's not really Chovy's style. Like, I've always said, Chovy's style is way more sort of controlled. It's like what you said about Inspired earlier. A lot of my favorite players like that, the upsets and the Froggins of the world, they don't like to just gamble. They want to sort of know this is the correct move and then make the correct move. The difference is, I agree with you, Chovy now has like opened up his game. Where, mate, if you want to use an MMA analogy, before it's like he was like some like ultimate wrestler guy who could fucking like just ground and pound you all day. Now it's like he's fucking letting his hands go and knocking people out, mate. Because I actually thought some of the moves he made in this series on that game 1 were fucking baller, mate. He had some sick ultimates. Like put it this way, fucking about 10 years ago, Phoenix did one of those ultimates and people still were talking about it 5 years later. Chovy in one game was doing like 2 or 3 of those, mate. They were fucking baller. And these were ones where if he didn't make those plays, they would actually have just slowly bled out. Like I said, they were losing some of the skirmishes and the fights. But this is also the other thing. The meta right now is so wired that like it's not really about how many kills the other team gets. If you just stay vaguely close in gold, when you get to like 25 minutes, you can just have the one fight you win that wins you the game. That's still a thing in the current meta. So in some ways, I know what you mean. For T1, it's like I don't want to totally diss them because they were in a winning position actually against what I think is the best team in the world. But on the other hand, so I guess on the one hand, I'll say it good for Gen.G that they came back in. They showed they don't have to just be a front runner, etc. Although, by the way, I actually saw online someone do quite a funny tweet about front running, which is whenever people use that as like a diss, like you're just a front runner. This guy said, look, he said a swear word because it was someone black, but like, put it this way, I'll just translate it. He essentially said, like, well, if the problem is that they're a front runner, why are you letting them get in front of you all the time? It's like it's a pretty good line, right? It's true. Why are they always in front of you? You know, by your own logic, put them behind, then you win, don't you? But guess what? The joke is, it's obviously harder to fucking do that than say it, isn't it? There's a reason why they're excellent. But first of all, this is a good comeback. But I'm with you on the T1 one, though, because here's what's disturbing about this loss to me, mate, is, first of all, it was only like the last week they had that like 3-game series against Brion again. Like, why is Bro so hard for you to play? So that's already disturbing me. But the bigger issue is this, Yamato. This isn't even comparing like some Orcs cast thing. Oh, we're comparing this. No, if you even look at Spring, T1 was way better at fighting in Spring. Man, Spring, like, not only them, but Faker was doing an awesome fucking job in fights. Like, they actually looked like that looked like a strength of their team then. So I have to ask you this. It is the traditional question this year, but I have to reload that question. One in the chamber. It goes like this. I have to say, Yamato, this is an example of a series where I do think Gumayusi fans go too far. Because, you know, their whole take was like, he's getting like not enough scrim time. He doesn't get to... Bro, he's been the starter now for weeks and weeks. He's had most of the games. I thought this was an example of a series where if I have to pick someone who didn't play that well, I thought he had some dodgy moments, mate. I thought he actually did struggle a little bit.
Okay, in my mind, that's like, Like I think in the Ashe games there was a mistake. I remember in Varus there was like a fight where like I didn't like how he flashed. There's definitely definitely.
These are his champions as well. Like that's another thing. I give them this. They're giving him his champions, mate. They're trying to set him up. Like it's not like they're making him play some weird shit.
Like for me, the contrast now. I try to make sure that I don't compare. I don't make the mistakes that the fans do where we compare Gumayusi at his best, because definitely in regular splits, T1 has had issues in the past. Even with Zeus, it's like there's been moments where in regular splits they just don't look good. They ramp up during playoffs, and there's been moments where Gumayusi looks inconsistent. Like I do think if I compare this regular split Gumayusi where he is now in comparison to the start when he like was doing like lame mistakes, getting flashed on by Alistar, dying on Jinx, like that is a massive move up from there. But that was like legit in hell in terms of like his level. That was like probably some of the worst Gumayusi games we've ever seen in his entire career. But if I compare his current form to what we know of Gumayusi in like past regular seasons, I do think this is kind of where I would place him. Like I think this was, if I would blame and attribute like the loss to anybody here, I do think that it's weird in a way because Keria has been really, really consistent. I think he's just been doing super well, besides that one series where he played like Elise and Pantheon support. And Ashe, I believe it was Ashe support that he played, which looked very ugly, but he bounced back quick. But Owner and Faker, to me, were like the biggest question marks in terms of like performance. There's like many moments where I thought, oh, Faker, you need to hit the charm here. Like Chovy should have died here. I thought that maybe 8 times in that Azir game. I was like, Faker, you need to hit these. I was like, okay, Faker, you get him to 25 minutes, he's going to perform. And even in those moments, like kind of dashed into Xayah feathers, got one shot in the fight by Xayah. I think those things stood out to me more in terms of T1's performance. I thought Gumayusi was there. He had good fights. I wouldn't like attribute too much blame on Gumayusi for this one, because I think mostly like Faker and Owner were the ones who dropped the ball in my mind, especially with the level of responsibility that they've carried in some of the previous series. I thought that they had like the biggest underperformance here.
I already think the problem Hanwha Life had this split goes, Gen.G just looks much better than them and will beat them head to head. They are the second best team, but then as the second best team, this is what's made the LCK suddenly not look as hot, whereas the LPL has all those amazing like Nirvana group, Ascend group teams that are like all killing each other every week. Is you look at Hanwha Life, even though they were winning all those past series, they weren't looking impressive when they did it. And sometimes they'd even look a bit sluggish in like individual players. Bro, to lose to KT, if people don't know, this isn't even past years of KT where it's like, lol, pure shit. This is just a bad KT, mate. Like, isn't this kind of alarming to you that Hanwha Life lost this series, mate?
That's it was so strange because like in the end, I just expect them to beat KT almost no matter what. Was like Hanwha Life's level currently kind of cements the idea of my whole opinion about LCK, because for the longest time this year in particular, I did think it was very easy to see that LCK's level is much better than LPL. Yeah. But I feel like we're finally at the point where like I can say that LPL level looks sometimes better even, and be fully honest, you know, like it's not a crazy thing and crazy statement to say, especially with like D+ level, like Hanwha Life being like very inconsistent. And usually it's like how they win their games. It's like, oh, they make a mistake. They fall behind here. They fall behind here. Oh, wow, Zeus just triple killed them. It's like, that's how they win their games. And you can get away with that to a certain degree. And maybe the problem is that they don't get challenged as much as some of like the LPL teams, because LPL is like, oh, you're going to perform bad today? Well, fuck you. You're going to lose to FPX. It doesn't matter how good you are. You're going to lose to WE or NIP even. You know, you're going to lose to anybody in this top 10 group.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a question of that, because Hanwha Life also in winter in regular split didn't look super impressive either. It's like they just kind of went by because they were in a better group. So maybe there's a context to that. But losing to KT should be unforgivable. It's like their roster. It's like you have BDD, and then you have Diokdam, who just hasn't performed well. Peter, who has found, he's doing better. Fair play to KT. It's like they have figured out that they should just lock his champions that he's been historically good on.
He was really good. I have to say, that was like a throwback series, mate. That was
it's like he's
fighting back to form. Hyped. This guy used to be a very hyped jungler. This is the reason why, yeah.
It kind of gave us that, the Cuz BDD vibes that we had back in, what was it, 2023,
Yeah,
it's
like,
oh, look at that.
KT, you mean, right?
Yeah, like in KT more recently. So it's like, I was like, okay, this is they're finding form again, but still they don't have good enough players to be able to should be able to win against Hanwha Life. But it comes also back to Hanwha Life's preparation. I just feel like it's so dated. They picked the Ambessa blind, which I think is something that is very outdated. Ambessa's win ratio and Prior has fallen off a cliff, and then they ended up on Lucian Elise as a combo. Lucian's making a resurgence with Melio, Braum, Nami, but Lucian Elise. This is some crazy fan fiction. That maybe Kazi would be writing. This is what is Lucian Elise doing in the same lane? Come on now, come on. This is horrible. But I thought it would be fine still, because that's probably, like, on paper, one of the worst Javan games to play. Just so everybody listens can have an idea. It's like he played Javan against Lucian, Elise, Ambessa, Sejuani, Azir. There's very little compositions that are more slippery than that, and still they managed to put it together. I'm a big fan of BDD. I think this is a player that's just been jailed with bad rosters for such a long time, and he's had a loyalty to KT. I just hope BDD is paid well. That's all I hope. Because if BDD was on one of the LPL teams with, like, strong rosters, this guy, he would achieve greatness.
But bearing in mind, I know KT as an org do have money, but as far as I know, it's more like the SK type approach, where it's like you either give it to a specific player or you just wait for certain years you want to load up, and the other years you do them in max. If I had to guess, he's almost certainly the player they pay in that team. It looks like he's the one they've sort of given the bag to. Like, he's the Larson of their team. The difference is he actually plays well in the game as well. No, here's the other thing. The other reason why that series was so disturbing to me, Yamato, is because in the games that Hanwha lost, they didn't just lose. They were actually getting, for real, just shit on, like, the whole way through. Like, they're just behind the whole fucking game, just losing all the fights, getting actually, like, and by the way, like, some of them, like, I think maybe it was like game 2. Bro, how fast is that fucking game? Like, it feels like it's just over instantly. Like, what? Because the other thing about Hanwha to me was, they have been a team that aren't the great front runners and don't just smash everyone. But normally, one thing, if you think of last split that was awesome, was they were super clutch. Like, they were the guys who could be behind but could hang in the game. This was actually just fucking bad play, man. This is the worst series of the year for them.
The main thing for me when I look at this team is Delight as a player. I think in certain contexts he's the best player, like best support in the world for sure. But when you only isolate when he plays range champions,
yes,
it looks awful. Like, I just don't like it at all.
Yeah.
Whether it's Elise or Bard, I just don't think he is remotely close to the player he is on his Rel and Rakan, or Alistar even. Like, any of the melee engaged supports, really.
Yes.
He's just one of the greatest ever at it. But the range supports, it looks iffy, because his 2 KT games that they lost was him, of course, on Bard, and then the other one on Elise. Like, those are circumstances where I just don't see him just be a top level at. And maybe Hanwha Life is in a position where they want to experiment a little bit, because obviously coming into Fearless, that's something that is going to be challenged. Okay. And this is something that players are aware of. But also at the same time, in the context of supports, I feel like this is a split in the LCK where the amount of good LCK supports is like, holy, it's like, we've never had this many good LCK supports playing at the same time. Like, even Kellen is fucking performing out of his mind, which is fun to see, because I do feel like that's a position that's been lacking. But usually, when I think about, like, LCK supports, I realize that usually for every region, there's like 2 supports dominating, and the rest just not really keeping up or understanding the game at the same level. But usually that's just a consequence of understanding macro and knowing where to be, because that's half the job. But now in the LCK, supports are actually doing well and breaking hands when they get the chance to do so.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.